Hey, first graders. So here I am with chapter 9 of My Father's Dragon. Okay. You remember in the last chapter, he got away from that nasty gorilla who likes to twist the dragon's wings. He got away from him by giving the little monkeys those magnifying glasses so they could see all of those fleas on him and go and get them off. And so they got so distracted, Elmer snuck away. Chapter 9 is called My Father Makes a Bridge. My father walked back and forth along the bank, trying to think of some way to cross the river. He found a high flagpole with a rope going over to the other side. The rope went through a loop at the top of the pole and then down the pole and around a large crank. And a crank is something that you can do this with. So when you turn the crank, it makes the rope come to him like that. So let's see where I was at. The rope went through a loop at the top of the pole and then down the pole and around a large crank. A sign on the crank said, "To summon dragon, yank the crank. Report disorderly conduct to the gorilla." And that means like if the dragon's not doing what he's supposed to do, he's not flying you across, or he says, "I'm too tired," then the gorilla would come out and twist his wings. So mean. That is no life for a baby dragon. From what the cat had told my father, he knew that the other end of the rope was tied around the dragon's neck, and he felt sorrier than ever for that poor dragon. If he were on this side, the gorilla would twist his wings until it hurt so much that he'd have to fly to the other side. If he were on the other side, the gorilla would crank the rope until the dragon would choke, or he'd end up having to fly back over where the gorilla is anyway. So it's literally just not, either way is good. He's either on the side with the gorilla, or if he tries to get away from him, he'll just yank the crank to get him back. My father knew that if he called to the dragon to come across the river, the gorilla would surely hear him. So he thought about climbing the pole and going across the rope. So here's what he's thinking. So there's the pole on this side, and it's tied to the rope is tied to the pole. And then over here is the dragon, and the other end's tied to his neck. So he's thinking, if I go across the rope, I'll get to the other side of the river. So he's trying to get a good idea of how to even get over by the dragon. So the pole was very high, and if he could get to the top without being seen, he'd have to go all the way across hand over hand on that rope. The river was very muddy, and all sorts of unfriendly things might live in it, but my father could think of no other way to get across. He was about to start up the pole when, despite all the noise the monkeys were making, he heard a loud splash behind him. That's never good. So he hasn't even left yet, and he hears this loud splash behind him. He looked all around in the water, but it was dusk now, which means starting to be nighttime and the sun's going down, and he couldn't see anything there. "It's me, Crocodile," said a voice to the left. "The water's lovely, and I have such a craving for something sweet. Won't you come in for a swim?" Should Elmer go in there for a swim? Absolutely not. No. A pale moon came out from behind the clouds, and my father could see where the voice was coming from. The crocodile's head was just peeping out of the water. "Oh, no, thank you," said my father. "I never swim after sundown, but I do have something sweet to offer you. Perhaps you'd like a lollipop." Maybe that's why he brought those. "Perhaps you'd like a lollipop, and perhaps you have friends who would like lollipops too." "Lollipops," said the crocodile. "Why, that is a treat. How about it, boys?" A whole chorus of voices shouted, "Hooray, lollipops!" And my father counted as many as 17 crocodiles with their heads just peeping out of the water. "That's fine," said my father as he got out the 24 pink lollipops and the rubber bands. "I'll stick one here in the bank in the sand. Lollipops last longer if you keep them out of the water, you know. Now one of you can have this one that's in the sand." The crocodile who had first spoken up swam and tasted it. Delicious, mighty delicious, he said. Now, if you don't mind, said my father, I'll just walk along your back and I'll fasten another lollipop to the tip of your tail with a rubber band. You don't mind, do you? Oh, no, not in the least, said the crocodile. Can you get your tail out of the water just a little bit? Asked my father. Yes, of course, said the crocodile, and he lifted up his tail. Then my father ran along his back and fastened a lollipop with a rubber band. Who's next? Said my father, and the second crocodile swam up and began eating that lollipop. So do you see what he's doing? He walked across one back, put a lollipop. Walk across another back, put a lollipop. Kind of a clever little bridge he's making. And here's a picture of him with that first crocodile eating his lollipop on the sand. And here he is fastening a lollipop to his tail so another guy can swim up and eat it. And hopefully it'll be enough crocodiles to get him across the water. So then my father ran along his back and fastened another lollipop with a rubber band. Who's next? Said my father, and a second crocodile swam up and began sucking on that lollipop. Now you gentlemen can save me a lot of time if you just line up across the river, said my father, and I'll be along and give each one of you a lollipop as soon as I can. So the crocodiles lined up right across the river with their tails in the air, waiting for my father to fasten the rest of the lollipops. The tail of the 17th crocodile just reached the other side. So literally he is across the river now. And thanks to that little crocodile bridge he just built all the way across using his lollipops and his rubber bands. Clever. You're going to love the title of chapter 10, which I'll read next time. It's called My Father Finds the Dragon. Finally, we have read all of this and we haven't even met the baby dragon yet. So I can't wait to read you chapter 10, which is, of course, the final chapter. And it's just so clever and you're going to love it so much. So anyway, I hope you like chapter 9 and I'll see you next time with chapter 10.